This podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for care by a doctor or other qualified medical professional. This podcast is provided with the understanding that it does not constitute medical or other professional advice or services. If you're looking for help, seek out a qualified medical services provider or other healthcare professional. Welcome to the Live Your Yoga podcast, a podcast dedicated to discovering and sharing all the ways in which yoga can be lived off the mat. Real stories by real people, just like you.
Welcome back to the Live Your Yoga podcast. Get ready to dive into today's episode with our guest, Dale Pearson, a yoga teacher and mindfulness facilitator, who's here to show us how yoga can be as creative as it is transformative. From traditional yoga mats to the unexpected setting of a swimming pool, Dale's got some incredible stories to share on delivering yoga in all its glorious forms. So settle in and join us as we explore the art of mindful movement with Dale. Welcome to the podcast, Dale.
Thank you, Sala. I hope I can live up to that intro.
Well, this intro was inspired by me meeting you many years ago in beautiful Costa Rica. So for our listeners, we actually took our yin teacher training together there. And I had some really inspiring experiences with you listening just to some of what you'd done up to then. So how about I read your bio for our listeners so that they can enjoy you as much as I did when we first met.
Okay, thanks.
All right. So Dale has over 40 years of experience as a teacher, coach, and facilitator, blending various modalities to support wellness and self-awareness. Her journey, sparked by an early interest in spirituality and meditation, led her to study diverse practices, including traditional Chinese medicine, Buddhism, energetic healing, and yoga. Named Joyful Path of the Heart by Thich Nhat Hanh in 1993, Dale integrates this spirit into her unique classes. Her work helps people adapt, grow, and discover resilience through mindful and relaxing practices, fostering health, happiness, and self-acceptance. Now, I must say, Dale, that is definitely the person I met when we were in Costa Rica. Yeah, for sure.
That's nice of you to say.
Yeah. How about we dive right in?
Okay.
I'm super interested to hear more about your journey. So if we start with the fact that I know that you've traveled extensively and studied numerous disciplines, can you share how these experiences and learnings have influenced your approach to teaching?
Yes, I can, I think. There have been times when I thought, I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. Because I've had such diverse interests over the years. And actually, some of the work I did that I haven't mentioned to you before is I worked extensively with youth and communities all across Canada. But what I discovered, even as I did that, was that when I followed my heart and really just followed learning about whatever excited me or seemed of interest, it eventually all began to blend and weave together. And so in working with youth, I could really directly help the youth who were extremely stressed or anxious or having issues with sleep. I could use the skills I had because I first started off by teaching stress management to executives and people who really didn't have a toolbox to call on in knowing how to manage the excessive stresses they often felt. So I began to learn that I could just overlap things and introduce new concepts into work where it was very valid, but maybe had not been traditionally a part of that work.
What I'm noticing there is that the way you speak about tuning into the heart space, the beautiful name you received from Thich Nhat Hanh, and the fact that we're in a time now where listening to the heart space really does feel like it's going to propel us as a community and collective into something very, very special.
Yeah, you're right,
Yeah.
Sal. It's really, and it's difficult. I don't think it's always easy. And I often, I don't like conflict. I like to step back from conflict if I can. And often that's the right thing to do. But there are times when we have to, stand for things that we believe in, and we have to live what we really believe from our heart. And that can present challenges. So I think I'm sharing that because, life is not always smooth and, just easily sailing along. We all face different challenges and hardships in our life. And I do believe they are the things that make us grow. But it's really helpful to have a grounding in being mindful and being able to come back to yourself, your center, and to have some skills to draw on that can help you do that. So when I work with individuals, what we do is build an individual toolbox because we all gravitate towards various practices that work best for us to achieve our goals. And that's something I really love doing, is helping people find ways that they can develop the skills and the tools that achieve that state of relaxation and mindful awareness that helps them accomplish everything else in their lives.
Wow. Powerful work. Powerful work.
I do.
Work. Yeah, work that makes such an impact, I think. I mean, just when I was in your presence in Costa Rica, I really felt you were able to tap into a lot of wisdom. And so we're gonna cover that in our chat today. Where I think we'll go next, just because it's so interesting to me. When I first saw that you were offering this as an experience, is that your teaching includes yoga practices in some truly unique settings, like the swimming pool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember when you posted about it, and I thought, I've never seen that. That is so interesting. So my question to you is, how do you approach integrating mindfulness into these varied environments? And what do you find most rewarding about each one that you choose?
I just want to say, to start off, that I just moved recently, like a few days ago. I relocated where I am in Mexico. And it just so happens that there's this magnificent pool on the rooftop that is absolutely perfect for water yoga. So to be starting that, because I love working with and in the elements. And I think that's really important, that because of my background in Chinese medicine, in fact, I'm doing a series right now that is working with each pair of meridians in relation to the element that represents them and the emotions that they contain. So I like adding those kinds of layers to a class that, maybe postures that we're really familiar with, that we've done before, but with a focus on, perhaps today it was finding harmony between the liver and gallbladder. And so that relates to anger and emotions like frustration. And the gallbladder is actually the organ that specifically relates to new beginnings or our ability to make good decisions. So I love adding those kinds of layers to what I do. But being in the water above maybe all the other settings, it's just so beautiful because water is so fluid. People who may have limited mobility or, are maybe recovering from an injury or afraid of falling because perhaps their balance isn't what it was. really love being in the water because you can't fall over.
Mm-hmm.
Natural resistance of the water adds a depth to any of the postures that you do or the movements that we do. And it's just really, really refreshing and lovely to see people feel confident about the range of motion they can have, because the water often enhances that possibility. And where I was teaching originally, there was this lovely big hot tub on the deck outside. And we used to end the session with some meditation in the hot tub. So it became very spiritual for some people, which made me happy that it was more than just a workout, you know?
Yeah, I can really picture all of this. Can you list some of the poses that you may have gravitated towards? Obviously, I understand you would have chosen poses to work with your class theme and intentions, but just so we can paint a picture of actually, if no one has seen this before or is even struggling to imagine, what kind of poses are people able to access confidently and safely in a swimming pool?
Oh, well, actually last night I was trying to sort of refresh my mind about some of the sequences and things that I like to do, because I haven't taught water yoga for a couple of years. So one of them is we do several poses just with our hand resting on the side of the pool. So there's always that support, and we use the wall as a part of what allows some of the postures. But when we're in the middle of the pool, there's a really lovely sequence. I know everybody enjoyed it. And we would maybe start off with Warrior One, and then raise our arm, like I call it salute to the sun. And then we would pivot and go into Warrior Two, and then ease into Warrior Three, and do different things, maybe different touches in between, different movements of the arms or the legs. But we would actually be able to travel across the pool together in a kind of dance. And I really enjoyed that. And I think people enjoyed it, especially after we became familiar with all of those poses.
You're really helping us paint a picture of how this, could look. And thank you so much for walking us through the reason you choose the varied environments as well. That was wonderful. This sort of leads me on to, because I feel you're very creative in the way you approach everything, actually. We chat a little bit, me and you, and there's just always creativity there in your language and expression. So I would love to hear about a story or example where your creative approach to yoga, whether in a pool or another setting, had a profound impact on your students' experience or personal growth.
That's a big question, Sala. I'm not so sure that, there have been very many moments when someone has, after a class or, at a different time, approached me to really express their gratitude for the door that has been opened for them. Because I really do try to make the classes and the sessions available to everybody, and there's no right or wrong. And, as long as you connect with your capacity, some people, it's like when we touch our toes, some people can just bend slightly. Other people can put their palms flat on the floor. We all have different capacities at different times in our lives. And I really want people to feel good about whatever it is that they can do that day. And that goes for me too. Sometimes we change from day to day or year to year, and we can be hard on ourselves. But I would say maybe the most profound thing I witnessed generally is that after a really good class, when we're very mindful and we allow ourselves to go deep into the breath work and the silence and the holding of the yin posture, there often I end a class and no one moves for quite a while. And it feels a little bit like magic, because I can sense how everyone has really gone into that beautiful space where there's ease and there's a sense of connection to, however we might like to word it, that which is greater than us, or just to the earth beneath us, to the elements around us. And at that point, we often practice metta. So we take that feeling and acknowledge how, as a group, we've created this beautiful energy, and then we send it out to someone who may need it, or to the community at large, or whatever might be appropriate that day. But I find that quite profound, not just for me, but for everybody, because we begin to understand how much our own practice, our own self-awareness and commitment to ease and peace and, inner sense of awareness, we realize how much that can benefit others also. We're not just benefiting ourselves.
Wow. Gosh, goosebumps as I'm listening to that. Yeah, mainly because I think I and also our listeners, at this point, if they're listening to this podcast, it would be unusual that they have not witnessed that themselves.
Yes.
Yes. So either in their personal practice, in a group environment, or a space where an intention is set to tune in like that. I know you and I discuss these themes a little bit here and there, back and forth, as we're moving through our individual journeys. And I think we're definitely moving into a time right now where this is being spoken about with more clarity and confidence and ease.
Yes.
Yeah. So I appreciate you bringing this up today, because I'm super excited for our future. With now so many people having been able to experience and witness this for what it is, which is how you just beautifully outlined it. Do you have anything else you'd like to add there about, just as a collective, as a community, as one world, how you feel we're moving forwards?
Well, I think what you're alluding to a little bit, Sala, is that sense of polarity that has been increasing over recent years. Mm-hmm. And it's very easy to exist with a sense of conflict these days. Conversations can easily become political or opinionated, and people forget what's really important sometimes. And I think these kinds of practices, the practice of gratitude and the practice of, I'm trying to think of something practical, like when I'm feeling really low sometimes, or, I spent a couple of years once asking myself, am I acting out of self-pity or self-importance? And I discovered I was acting out of self-pity more often than I really, would have liked. So that helped me to modify how I did things and how I approach things. But when we participate in a group, and when we really begin to realize that there are tools that we can use to help connect us with others, and to help others to connect with something that, maybe wasn't available to them before, or when we're feeling like we need something to actually step out of ourselves and help somebody else directly, we begin to understand how that's mutually beneficial. And often I say to the kids I work with, or to my own kids, if you're feeling a little low, or you're feeling like something isn't quite right, find someone who needs even more than you feel you need, and help them do it. And I think in a kind of different way, in an indirect way, that's what we do in our classes. We recognize that we each are contributing to not just to ourselves, but I hope I help set that stage that lets everybody realize that we're all helping each other in that class. It's not completely a solo event.
That bit, we are each contributing. Yes, I hear you.
We all have something to offer. And, if someone is not there because they're having a challenge of some sort, a health challenge or whatever, we direct the energy to them. I think that's been, as you said, it's something that is growing and something that's becoming more available to people. We can really influence each other and we all know that. We all know that if we walk in a room and smile and make direct eye contact and really feel gratitude for being there with the people that are there, the whole energy elevates. And so we're all very capable of creating great spaces.
What a beautiful way to sum up that, because my next question is about sort of on this theme of great, beautiful spaces. So it's playing with the first question or the second question, which was about the unique settings that you've chosen to blend in with your study and experience. So my question is, what advice would you give to yoga practitioners or teachers looking to explore new and creative ways to deliver their practice, especially for those interested in blending mindfulness in a beautiful yet unconventional setting?
Well, I guess the first thing is to really be true to yourself. If it's, and this is where the whole idea of having varied interests and maybe some diverse practices, they can all interweave, or as Thich Nhat Hanh would say, they can interbe. And so if you're true to yourself, like if, maybe you're a person who really loves music and you weave music into your classes in a unique way. Or maybe you're really capable of blending in different kinds of breath work. I don't think we should be rigid. Well, personally, I guess I can only say that. I think I like to let go of any sense of rigidity or expectation. I might know what I want and what I want to achieve, but sometimes things grow, quite organically. And, one of the things I love doing in the summer, I have quite a lovely backyard and a large garden area. And I do yoga in the garden. And, of course, there are times when there's bumps under us and, my lawn is far from smooth. And, there's bugs or, different things that happen. The call of birds or the barking of dogs and things. But, we look up at the blue sky and we just, I can see, I encourage people to feel the breeze on your skin and feel the scent or smell the scent of the flowers and the plants around you, and watch the branches sway a little bit in the summer breeze, or watch the clouds scud by overhead. And so every setting, if it speaks to us and we allow it to, every setting can work. It won't be perfect for everybody, but there are, if you do something with your heart full and with genuine love and appreciation, I think we always find people who want to share that with us.
Yes, I've seen that so many times before. The minute a new teacher or maybe an individual stepping back into teaching after taking a break starts tuning into actually what fills my heart.
Yes.
People just come out of nowhere almost to join that. It's a vibration in itself. It's absolutely amazing to witness. But that takes a little bit of courage sometimes to dispel the illusion of limiting beliefs, which I always find that bit is interesting.
Yes. So then we have to not be attached to success or failure in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
We put it out there, and some things may work and some things may not. But we generally learn throughout the process, whichever way it goes. And sometimes doing something that doesn't quite work leads to something else that really does.
Mm-hmm. Like stepping stones of sorts.
Yeah, which is just like life, is it not? Like just, we sometimes just have to feel our way. But again, we come back to, if you're true to what you feel, not just in a heartfelt sense, but you know what? You really understand maybe the benefits, or you can really feel how this would be really of value to some people, maybe not even tons of people, but some people, and you do it with that in mind, then even if it's, often I have quite small classes, and I'm happy with that because I know I'm touching a portion of the population that wouldn't maybe go to other classes, or maybe haven't had a good experience yet in terms of yoga classes. But these days, most of my classes, I call they're low and they're slow. And once we're on the mat, we don't get back up. We and because the group that I serve benefits the most through that. Now, I can offer another class that does other things, but this is what I guess excites me a little bit, because I see people who maybe otherwise wouldn't do any stretching or yoga or breath work or movement, because their experience of getting up and down on the mat, or doing deep squats or things or balances is just not comfortable for them. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying there's not a great place for that and that's important, but what I get pleasure out of is having people come to a class. I'm just thinking of someone who said that in coming to my class, I changed what she thought yoga was.
Wow.
Right. So she thought it was all these expectations that she could never meet. And then she discovered that the practice I offered her really supported not just her physical and mental health, but her spiritual journey as well. And so, yes, her body started feeling better, her joints and her muscular response and her relaxation. But really what was happening was she was starting to feel like she was part of something she couldn't quite fit into her life before, with a sense of success or full participation. And that's important too.
Mm-hmm. That's such an amazing thing to share. Thank you for indulging us in that experience you had. What beautiful feedback. That's just so nice. So nice. Now, I'm aware of a little bit of the training that you've done, the extensive training in areas such as yoga, meditation, and shamanism. Mm-hmm. But my question is, how do you balance and blend these practices to address both physical and mental well-being in your own life? Because you have many strings to your bow, or many tools in your box now, as you say.
Yeah, I like that. Many strings to my bow. I'll have to remember that. In full honesty, when I began what I feel is my personal path, one of the biggest motivators for some aspects of it was that I was very easily stressed. As a young mom, new parent, certain vulnerabilities arose, I guess you could call them. And I realized I had various fears and patterns that were quite stressful and hard on me. So that's why my first attention went to, apart from the spiritual things I'd been following from a much younger age, I realized I really wanted to learn the mechanics and the background of relaxation response. So I read a lot of Hans Selye and all of the books that came out back then around how to elicit the relaxation response. And I think these things provided a really good groundwork for all the other things that I did. But I'm trying to be as honest as I can in saying that I'm still a little that way inclined. So I have to use my practices to stay grounded. So this morning, for instance, I got up and went up to the pool at sunrise. And it was so lovely. I mean, it was an easy thing to do. But I just knew that I had a full day today. And a great way to start it off would be to do a few laps and just watch the sunrise and, breathe and help ground myself in that way. And so I'm not saying it's easy, and I never, ever want to have anyone make an assumption that because we have some tools in the box and we have some practices that suddenly we'll always be totally calm and, equanimous and deeply aware. Now and then I, fall off the path or take a nosedive. And I'm just thankful that I know what can bring me back. I know to come back to my center, and I know things I can do that will help with that. And I also never, ever underestimate the power of having good friends who support that. And so at home and here in Mexico, I can always, I have friends that I can always call on to help bring me back to ground, or to share a practice with because I'm feeling a little off, or to walk the beach and support each other in some new awarenesses or, questions that we may have. So I think it's really important too to cultivate friendships and connections that support that exploratory part of us that always wants to come back to center, even if we do get knocked off our center a little bit.
That was such a brilliant answer, because it's so relatable, because life just keeps going and changing and evolving. And
it does.
And sometimes our reactions to life can be a little unprecedented depending on what's going on, right?
That's right. And, hopefully we do make progress, and we, how I might respond to something now is very different from how I might have responded 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. Nevertheless, challenges arise. And there's always, I think I always want to be aware of what I don't know, because there's always something I don't know. There's always something new, right? There's always a new way to look at things or a new practice. I mean, I've been following certain practices for, say, the past 12 months or so that weren't as upfront for me a few years ago. So we constantly evolve, and our perception changes. Hopefully it does, because it would be sad if we just stayed completely still all the time. And you have to flow with that. And, I think we're a culture, particularly in North America, that it can be very hard on ourselves. And that's not always helpful, Sometimes it's more important to just simply acknowledge that this is a new challenge, or this is a new awareness. This is, we're in new times right now. I mean, the world is not what it was for most of us. So to kind of roll with that and say, okay, this and this works. Is there something else that I can do to help really keep me centered and focused? Or even just to help me get a really good night's sleep. Because I don't know about you, Sala, but most people I speak to do not sleep well.
Yeah, that's such a big theme. And, right now, just this week and last week, I'm one of those people for actually the first time in my life. I also can't help but notice though that this is, big shifts happening, much bigger than we maybe know. And so I'm just practicing the non-attachment.
Yeah. Be kind to ourselves.
Yeah, that's right. And actually, what I've realized is that in doing that, less anxiety about losing sleep is a result. And then actually, sleep is a little bit better the next night. So it's fascinating when we just start with the mindful awareness.
Yes.
And the knowingness that we have a choice.
Yeah.
Which obviously comes from a little life experience in some places. Yeah. And then evolution does happen on its own. Yeah.
Yes. And like you said, to understand that, some things occur and they, do we have to label it as a big disaster? Maybe we have a week that we don't sleep so well.
Mm-hmm.
It's that same concept as, I guess, simply recognizing and accepting. This morning, as we did the liver gallbladder work, anger is a hallmark of the liver being out of balance. But we can't berate ourselves for that or push it away. I mean, we do both, right? We often try to overcompensate, or we try to push it away and pretend it's not even happening. But to take it out, and Thich Nhat Hanh would say this, to take it out and hold it lovingly, and maybe ask yourself even, why am I not sleeping so well? But to embrace that is part of, to me, a way of living that I want more of. Because it's very easy to blame ourselves or, look at something as a real problem and try push it away. I'm very good at trying to push some things away because I don't like conflict. But to pull it out and say, why is this happening? Why is maybe this situation causing me aggravation? And not to put myself down for feeling aggravated, but to say, why is this happening? And how can I alleviate this or handle it better? And Thich Nhat Hanh would even say, hello, aggravation. I care about you, I love you. And I want us to be able to get along better. That kind of thing. Denial is not the route to go. Repression. How many of us repress emotions rather than say, oh, here are some ways that I can feel that emotion, but express it in a healthy way.
Something I'd love to share with you, which I'd love your viewpoint on, actually. It was something I adopted about a couple of years ago. I was busy doing some work on myself. It wasn't fun, but it was necessary. And I wonder how many people can relate to that bit.
A lot.
Yeah, right. And I was sitting there with different emotions all the time. And I realized how quickly they will flow so I can only talk from a personal place, when I would resist the urge to resist the emotion actually in the tissues of my body. So relaxing as the emotion was there, like actively relaxing with the intention of, if you just let it Let it do what it's going to do. Let it move where it needs to move. Let's see what happens. And the change in the timeline, I would say, at the speed in which the emotions either were stuck there and I was tense because I didn't want it, to them just almost dissolving themselves by softening into it. It was a very visceral and visual experience, and a real almost like a meditation bell moment where I'd have to go, okay, it's happening now, and I'm doing what I always do, and I'm just gonna offer it the space to flow through. And it was incredible. Maybe less than a minute, and it would shift into neutrality again for a while.
Yeah, no, that's lovely. I mean, and it's not always like that, and we'll all have different experiences at different times. Be aware of that's a very real possibility to just soften into it. You know, in my classes, a lot of times I'll just, rather than say relax or something, I'll just say soften into it, because we want to just release in a posture, right? I mean, in my mind anyway, the real work that's getting done on the inside is facilitated by our capacity to let go of everything, to really release any muscular tension, to release any of those hot spots that we might have, those chronic points, and to learn actually over the course of time to really know what that means and to feel what that means.
To feel what that means, yes.
Yeah, because even, you know, many, many years later, I'll be in a posture sometimes, and as I sort of scan myself, and I am practiced at sort of reading, I'm trying to be practiced anyway at reading what my body tells me. I'll go, you know, why do I have that little tight spot in my left shoulder blade? Like it's like a little chronic reminder that to look a little more deeply and to soften a little more and to let go a little more. And I think no matter who we are, well, maybe there's some exceptions, but in general, our bodies hold so much. Our bodies hold so many memories and so much tension. And there are so many chronic points that sometimes we're not even conscious of that, because, you know, a few things happen. We have a busy day. We were in big traffic. We're late for something. And we don't, without practice and without some tools in our box or some strings for our bow, we don't even recognize right away that all these little tightnesses and holdings are happening. Never mind the big ones that, you know, we've spent much of our lives with from way back in our childhood, perhaps. So really important to, I think, develop interoception and that capacity to read your own body and respond to your own body's messages. And that's another big part of the classes that I do, I would say.
That's really, really beautifully put. And that takes me on perfectly to a bit more of a personal question. It's a big, juicy one, but also it's very rooted in today, the now. So the question is, how do you live your yoga?
How do I live my yoga? I would say, I'm going to give a nice short answer to this. These days, I ask myself all the time, am I acting out of fear or love? And that's how I live it, because I always want to act out of love.
Right. So relatable. So now as well.
Yeah.
So now, if we tune in and listen, so now.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Dale, I could talk to you forever.
I enjoyed talking with you too, Sally. It's been too long.
I know. What year was it that we were training?
Oh my gosh, I don't remember. 2015 or something.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Yeah. Do you remember the thunderstorms we had? Where it shook the yoga studio? There were some big lightning strikes and thunder booms.
Actually not as clearly as you. But that was a beautiful spot. And I could, and I guess that's another thing to share with people if you can. I mean, I love going on retreats. I love going on retreats to learn things, and I love going on retreats just to be in silence for days on end, because there's always so much to learn. Whether we sit and do nothing and just, meditate, or we take in a lot of information and exchange good ideas with other people. It's good to do that and to always be open to what might come out of something like that. So I really enjoyed that retreat. I guess I could even say in some ways it changed my life. And I could say that of most retreats I've done, or, I guess I like to think that about almost everything I do, because if we do it with our whole heart, it does often set a new course for us or opens a new pathway for us. And, Carlos Castaneda said, a path is just a path as long as you follow the path with heart.
Oh my gosh. Cherry on the cake right there. If that wasn't the line of this whole podcast. Oh, it's been an absolute delight. Thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, thank you, Sala. I've enjoyed this. It's been really nice to talk with you.
Beautiful. All right. So with that, we'll wrap it up for today's episode with Dale Pearson. You can find her information in the show notes. So it's a goodbye from me.